Hello fellow cyborgs, and welcome to a video in the A Lot of Beatrix Potter series where I talk about all of the Beatrix Potter related reads that I have recently read and finished. Today we're going to talk about two very different biographies of Beatrix Potter. We are going to start off with the book that started this whole mini obsession off, which is Beatrix Potter, A Life in Nature by Linda Lear. I buddy read this with M.A. Anders and Natalie from Curious Reader, and it was a very wonderful buddy reading experience, and also necessary because this is a pretty big book. It's close to 500 pages, not including the notes, and this is a very detailed and thorough biography. Even though Linda Lear's presence within the text is completely not there, there's absolutely zero memoir aspects to this or an explanation from Linda Lear as to why she decided to go on this, it must have been research intensive journey. It is still, I found, incredibly readable and full of so many interesting and humanizing facts about Beatrix. We're on a first name basis now. For those of you who only know of Beatrix Potter as being the writer of the tale of Peter Rabbit, she spent 6 or 7 years completely obsessed with studying fungi and mushrooms and could study them and drew them on an incredibly detailed basis using microscope slides. She even posited a theory that only 100 years later was confirmed, that mushrooms are only one form of a much larger underground lichen. Lichen? She also was obsessed with art from a very early age and would spend her days studying the animals that she and her brother Bertram had collected into the nursery. And though they both, and especially Beatrix, loved animals, they were not overly sentimental and would actually taxidermy or boil the bones of the animals once they had died and then construct them into a skeleton and then further study them. These are some hardcore Victorian children. She was kind of a late bloomer and started publishing when she was in her 30s. She also had 2 significant romantic relationships, both of which took place, one at the end of her 30s and one at the end of her 40s. She wrote 24 Peter Rabbit works within 12 years, and then after she moved to Hilltop Farm in the Lake District, she then pretty much changed her whole life again and became a farmer. She and her husband ended up in their lifetime donating about 4,000 acres to the National Trust, which was set up to protect the Lake District's lands from being developed or turned into something unrememberable, unrecognizable. And then after their deaths, they donated a further more than 4,000 acres of land, and they are to this day the people who have donated the most land to the National Trust. So apart from me just skimming over the highlights of her life to hopefully make you realize how fascinating of a person she was, this biography, like I said, not only was it incredibly detailed, it seamlessly blended primary sources like journal entries and letters in with the text that Linda Lear wrote herself. The chapters are also divided not strictly chronologically, but more on themes. So there's an entire chapter on her scientific interest and when she became obsessed with fungi. There are different chapters about the different phases in her publishing history. There's a chapter on different interpersonal relationships she had. It very much felt not just like a dry biography, nor like this mismatched, thematically organized biography. It was very well balanced. I enjoyed this so much. The only thing that made me hesitate to give this 5 stars and made me give it 4 stars instead is I found I wanted some sort of sentimental climactic moment at the end of the biography, which would allow me to kind of mourn the loss of this wonderful person in the world, but also celebrate that she existed at all. And that didn't happen. Like I said, Linda Lear is very detail-oriented, facts-based. She, as a person, was not present in the text at all, and pretty much sentimentality was pretty much absent from this as well. Very little emotion is communicated of what Beatrix felt during her life. She was a pretty unsentimental person. All of my fondness for Beatrix came from the things that I saw her do and the opinions I heard her communicate through letters and diary or journal entries, but not very much of that was connected to emotion. So I think that the ending, as very unsatisfying as I wanted it to be, I think fit the overall tone of this book. So 4 out of 5 stars from me, and I'm so glad that I read this and was able to share this journey with 2 fellow booktubers and just really become invested in the life of this person who I really hadn't given much thought before. The other biography I read was the originally published in 1945. This is the first biography of Beatrix Potter, called The Tale of Beatrix Potter by Margaret Lane. This is the revised edition that came out in, I think, originally 1968. I suppose the revised edition adds specifically information on Beatrix's journals because she wrote in a code that she created herself, and it wasn't until a couple decades after her death that someone was able to break that code, and we were able to have more insight into her life as a young juvenile and also get specific text from that journal. I don't know how else this revised edition is different from the original. This was kindly gifted to me from my best friend's family, and it was a very, very fun juxtaposition to the Linda Lear biography. These, I almost would say, are kind of polar opposite ways of doing a biography, where Linda Lear's is chocked full of research details and hundreds of pages of notes and is very low on the sentimentality. Margaret Lane's prose is dripping with opinion and whimsy and is full of misinformation. It seems as though some of the misconceptions we have about Beatrix Potter's life, which Linda Lear's biography really tried to push against and shove facts at you about why these things weren't true, I think a lot of that false information came from this biography. Things like that her nursery room windows were barred, which was untrue, that her father didn't really work even though he was technically a lawyer, which is not true. So knowing that I had to kind of take everything that Margaret Lane painted for me with a grain of salt was an interesting experience, but she did bring characters to life more than Linda Lear did, I think. Because she doesn't let her opinions get in the way or her sentimentality get in the way, Margaret Lane is able to paint more vibrant pictures of the people in Beatrix's life and Beatrix herself and offer up more biased opinions than Linda Lear did. I really truly enjoyed this writing style though. It was really whimsical and so much fun to read. This felt like almost like it was a novel rather than nonfiction, and coming from a very detail-oriented and heavy Linda Lear, this was kind of like rereading that, but with a breath of fresh air and, like I said, just extra sentimentality. While I made a lot of notes in the Linda Lear biography on facts that I found absolutely fascinating and things that I wanted to be able to quick reference later potentially, I made notes in here on sentences that just tickled my fancy. So for instance, talking about how Margaret Lane insinuates that Beatrix Potter's father didn't really have a profession, this is how she does it. It is not quite true to say that Rupert Potter had no profession. He had been called to the bar and described himself as a barrister, but he never practiced, since the only brief he had ever received had turned out to be a hoax, a discovery which he made with great relief. But after all, what need was there to work? He had plenty of money, and although there was a certain dignity in being a barrister, to renounce the actual toil of the profession was even more becoming in a gentleman. So you got kind of an idea of the sort of tone that this takes. Like I said, pretty delightful and a joyful experience, though I wouldn't go here first to really get the actual picture of Beatrix Potter's life. I think some of the fascinating little obsessions and aspects that Beatrix Potter's life had that I described in the Linda Lear biography is glossed over in here. You don't get as detailed and therefore as like insane of a picture of this one person who did so many things in her life. So these are the 2 Beatrix Potter biographies that I have recently read. I gave both of them 4 stars, but for completely different reasons, but I do recommend reading both of them if you are really interested in Beatrix Potter, though I think you would probably enjoy a similar journey as myself, starting with the heavier but more factual Linda Lear and then moving to the more sentimental and whimsical Margaret Lane. Please stay tuned for more videos in the A Lot of Beatrix Potter series, where I will be talking about the works by Beatrix Potter that I read and some Beatrix Potter related things as well. Please let me know in the comments down below if you are interested in reading more about Beatrix Potter now, or if you already knew how amazing she was. And until next time, continue to be lovely.